I feel this know this can happen for a while. I think about a month ago, if I remember correctly, I found out that this was a possibility. But as this title pretty much suggests, also hello YouTube if this goes on there. I don't know if this will. Big House, pretty much, you can tell by the title, is not going to happen this year. At least I'm assuming that's what it's going to say. I haven't read it yet, but I'm pretty sure that's what's going to wind up happening. But this is one of our two biggest tournaments every year alongside Genesis. It's easily top two most prestigious tournaments that we have. It's been more of a Melee tournament in recent years than it has been Melee and Ultimate. But for Melee, this is definitely a tournament that is a tough pill to swallow for losing. Let me see. Let's see. All right. Hi, everyone. I've received a lot of questions on Big House this year, and I want to provide a status update. I have a lot of thoughts to share, and my only request is that you read this completely to the end and do not pass along any TLDR summary version. A lot of it is personal and multi-layered, and I really struggled to find the right balance of sharing my honest internal dialogue while also keeping it concise enough for the general public. For context, I'm Robin Harn, aka Jungle Guy, and I've been the head organizer of Big House since its inception in 2011. The event is taking place in October for each installment, minus the 2 COVID years. Ever since I started hosting Big House, my reasons for doing it have largely remained the same. I want to challenge myself as a project manager who has visibility on every part of an organizational chart: logistics, marketing, finances, people management, etc. I have an entrepreneurial itch to host a large-scale event and find a way to put all the necessary pieces together. I want to fulfill a creative vision for how an event can look, feel, and be experienced, and have the resources to achieve said vision. I feel a duty to raise and sustain the quality of events to empower future generations of attendees to enjoy a great experience at them. The one thing I'll say is this is kind of a natural consequence of tournaments as TOs kind of get on in life, similar to players, right? I feel like we overlook the fact that players retire, but TOs also will retire at some point. The same person is not going to be running events for 20, 30 years, most likely. Granted, their lifespan, I guess, intuitively should be a little bit longer if you're talking about capability, just in terms of family. People get family, they get other obligations. It's very understanding that someone would just move on from something at any point in time, especially for tiering, which historically, maybe they make some money on the largest events. They're not making enough, especially not to justify all the effort they put into the events. These reasons have always been in harmony with the following assumptions in my ability to host events. I have enough time over the summer and fall to dedicate towards planning a Big House in October. Never knew that makes sense. I feel I can give 100% of my energy and effort towards making the current year's event the best possible product it can be. I have the financial stability in my personal life to be able to cover any potential losses if they come up at the end of the event, as we said. And I feel the desire and hunger from the community, sponsors, and partners to support the event with the resources it needs. Over the past year, some of these assumptions have shifted. I'll go through them one by one. Time, energy, effort. I've recently been hired as a varsity volleyball head coach at a high school near and dear to me in Michigan. I absolutely love doing it, and it satisfies a lot of the challenges I enjoy. If you replace the word event with volleyball program in my original list of reasons I host the Big House, you'll find that my motivation and fulfillment are similar for each. The role not only involves coaching a varsity team, but also managing the entire high school program in all aspects, such as hiring the JV freshman assistant coaches, budgeting, fundraising, coordinating gear, running youth camps, TOing, and networking. Previously, I only coached club volleyball, which runs from December through June and conveniently allowed me to focus on the Big House in summer and fall. But now I've stepped into managing an entire high school program. Good for you. And the volleyball school season runs from August through October, which is obviously at a point where Big House does happen. Given the overlap with what is the traditional peak of Big House planning season, I won't be able to give another project 100% of my energy during those months. So I'm assuming doesn't want to half-ass something, which again, I respect. If you know anything about me, you know I approach every project I take on with the intent to make it the absolute best possible thing, which requires all of my energy and effort. This year, that means putting it towards my new role leading a volleyball program. Mango's seething. Why is he seething? We let Lieutenant Cody win the Big House. Life isn't fair. You got the last summit, you fucking bitch. Shut up. I wanted a 3P. Fuck out of here. Financial stability. As much as I love my new role leading a high school program, it's not a full-time job at the end of the day, and I currently don't have the financial stability of a full-time job as a buffer. My last full-time job ended in extremely disappointing fashion, and I honestly lost faith in certain industries and positions of leadership in that process. So I've been living off personal savings and random gigs for the past few months in an effort to find inspiration with a possible career pivot, but I want that to be organic and not force myself into a new opportunity if it isn't the right fit for me. I don't know how much time this will take, but I feel very strongly that I have to naturally let it play out. Without this buffer in my personal life, I don't feel it's responsible to take on hosting a large-scale event that is almost always cut it close in terms of breaking even financially. That's actually insane to think about, chat, when you consider the amount of time that goes into Big House, the scale of the tournament, the amount of resources, sponsors they pull in, and that it's barely break even, supposedly. Like I said, TOing is not really all it's cracked up to be, which is also why I keep saying, or I'm a big proponent of when people complain about TOs or power trips, and I'm like, these people get nothing for doing this realistically. And this is, again, TO of one of the two biggest events of the year. And he's telling me that he's barely breaking even, and I have no reason not to believe that. And also, this kind of confirms that, because I feel like if you want financial flexibility and you were actually making a ton of money, you wouldn't just stop doing it. That just makes no sense. Community partner support. With each recent installment of Big House, it's become increasingly difficult to find sponsors and partners willing to financially back the event. Our general attendance has hit a plateau of around 3,000 people as well. The combination of these factors make it increasingly difficult to host a large-scale event at the creative level that I want. Interesting. When organizations like Panda, Beyond the Summit, and Golden Guardians go away, it has unfortunate ripple effects on events like Big House. Honestly, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. The past 2 years, my staff and I dug deep to put in extra hours during planning season to still find a way to make it work, and against all odds, we produced what we believe are the two best Big House events ever, creatively and logistically. But when the effort and stress level of making it work keep increasing, while the big picture of financial feasibility keeps decreasing, eventually reaches a breaking point where we can't keep pace with these two trends drifting in different directions. All this to say, as of right now, Big House is on indefinite hiatus. So it's not done, it is on an indefinite hiatus. Take that how you will. It could be back next year. It could not be back next year. We have no idea. The door is open for the event to come back in future years, but it would require shifting of several reasons and or assumptions I listed above. That can mean it happens at a different time of year, or it's led by a different head organizer, or it's more financially feasible given some combination of increased partner support / shifting community expectations. I think if two of those three factors were to change, then Big House would be in a good position to return. But I want to make clear that there are a lot of administrative and organizational questions that have to be answered before we even entertain that possibility. And personally, I'm not actively working on answering those questions at the moment. So it sounds unlikely that it's going to come back in the near future. It could, but it would take a pretty big change in perspective. I can talk about more at the end, but obviously esports is just kind of in a pretty devastating state right now for everyone. And I do suspect that a lot of the financial concerns, at the very least, will go away once kind of the economy bounces back. Esports is not really to my knowledge, how should I say, a niche that does particularly well when the economy is struggling. So it makes sense that this has taken a big hit, especially when you consider everything else that's happened in the past year. You might be asking why someone else can't just step in and take over Big House in my absence this year. I think it's a fair question and a possibility down the line, but I want everyone to understand it's not simple on short notice. Venues for large-scale events require months or even years of lead time to secure them, true, often with tens of thousands of dollars of deposit or multiple years of locked-in contracts for both the venue space and surrounding hotel room blocks. Someone has to take on that carried expense and risk. For example, if the head TOs make an executive decision to upgrade a part of the venue at an extra cost, then that head TO is financially responsible for any consequences of that decision. For the past 11 Big House installments, I've been taking on that risk because I've had the bandwidth to feel like I can control my own destiny in making the event great enough to overcome that risk. But for the reasons and shifting assumptions I laid out above, I won't be able to do so this year, and it's unclear who, if anyone, would be willing to step into that role at the moment. TOing events is still a passion project. I've never paid myself a salary for hosting events, instead always reinvesting towards making future events as great as possible for attendees. The truth is, there are way more expenses now than even 2 years ago, let alone 13 years ago when Big House first started. The community demands more, sometimes reasonably so, but certain constraints make it difficult for me to guide Big House in a direction that satisfies both my creative wishes and the community's expectations. Streams and internet needs are the prime example. These expenses scale poorly at our venue because multiple stream broadcasts each bring their own costly additions of union labor shifts and in-house staging requirements. I never really thought about that. Internet is so obscenely expensive at the Kobo Center that it infinitely cost a major company, Wizards of the Coast, to cancel the stream broadcast altogether for a Magic the Gathering Grand Prix Detroit, a few years ago. I think it means in Detroit. Growing viewer expectations as a quad stream broadcast create massive tension on our ability to affordably spread out resources to the rest of the event. Again, that makes sense. It's just another example of rising costs when there isn't really a shift in kickback on, the event. Which is also why, I think if you guys remember, there was so much outrage when Genesis increased their venue prices by like $10 or something. And people were like, oh, they're greedy, et cetera, et cetera. And I know most people that have any neck in the, conversation or have any real understanding of it weren't. But this is why a bunch of us got so mad at that notion, because they have grown so much, and to expect the event to grow at the rate that it has and all the additions that they've had, and to expect the same, venue costs, etc., every year in, year out, is just genuinely absurd. And I know there were a lot of arguments people didn't like where, I said, dude, it's $10. I'm sure you spend $10 on alcohol at some point over the weekend. You can just redirect it to the freaking venue so that we can actually have an event. And hopefully this kind of gives you more insight on why that was so frustrating for a lot of the players to read, because they're breaking even. And it's not like, not like venues are getting cheaper than they were 10 years ago. It's not like internet is cheaper than it was 10 years ago. It's not like we have fewer streams than we did 10 years ago. We have more. It's not like food is less expensive than it was years ago. All the prices of everything across the board have universally raised, and we do not have enough people to make up for that. And especially the one area I will say is I do think TOs should probably put more effort into finding things in the tournament to put money into, whether it be through compendiums or things of that sort. I do think that is somewhat underexplored, but you should never have to rely on that either. You should pretty much be able to expect that the people who come in will be able to pay for the event in some capacity. And that's pretty much how these prices are determined. None of the TOs are rich. They're understandably rich. There's a reason nobody runs more than one big event, right? Except for maybe Deer. And Deer's just a psycho who has an insatiable drive to run melee events. There's a reason nobody runs that many events. If this was actually just a cash grab or money grab, which again, most people don't think that, but there's a surprising amount of people who do, you would just be seeing more of these events pop up. You'd be seeing more people running it. You'd be seeing people run more events in a year, but that's not the case because it's just not very easy to make these jobs financially feasible. Online events are usually way easier to run, which is why they had a lot of appeal, which is why, certain events were able to pay out so much money during quarantine. I won't name them for obvious reasons, but, that's why we were kind of able to have those events like that. And you do have to understand that if you want these events to continue or grow or flourish, you're going to have to pay up. That's life. It sucks. So yeah, nobody wants that to be the case, but that is the case. Big House is on indefinite hold. Our aforementioned venue, Cobo Center, is quite frankly a huge pain to work with. We compete with the Detroit Auto Show and several other major companies for space, and often those clients have deep pockets to be able to put down deposits for multiple years and way ahead of time. Up to this point, I've been careful not to lock in Big House for periods of time of contracts because I want to respect how quickly the gaming landscape evolves and might steer us in a different direction that would require a different venue. Fair enough. But sticking with one-year commitments has meant higher rental costs and more difficult scheduling, which exacerbates the issues above. You might then be asking why Big House can't just downscale and find a smaller venue. For me, it boils down to the creative vision of what I want to do with a large-scale event, and that still means we host it for the entire community at large in one very spacious venue. His decision, you can't really question that, and it'd be ridiculous to chastise him or come after him for not wanting to downscale his event. He runs it the way he wants to, and he's doing it for us. Very clearly. Inclusive venue within walking distance of hotels and within 30 minutes of a major airport. Again, if you haven't been a competitor or you haven't been to an event, you have no idea how much of a difference it makes when the venue is right next to, the hotels, when it's close to an airport, and when there are things in walking distance. That adds to every event so much. So it definitely makes sense that for this kind of vision, this kind of event, you want that. But it does also limit you usually to more expensive places because you want to be next to a major airport, you're going to be in a city most likely. You want to be near the hotels, all right, but what are hotels usually located in? Cities, right? And especially with all the places in walking distance, you're not really going to find that in the middle of nowhere. The best example I could say is Aaron, who runs Riptide, does run it in the middle of Ohio, and it's great if you want to do a water park, but I think even Aaron can admit, it takes an hour for the shuttle to get there. And if you want to do anything in that area, you're not really going to be able to do anything outside the water parks. There's just not that much there. And so you have to weigh that against what do you actually want. It's the same reason the first Shine that was in Boston, everyone's pretty much favorite event. It was amazing, but it's expensive. You're in the middle of Boston. It's going to be egregiously expensive. The costs are going to be off the charts. Unfortunately, no other venues in Southeast Michigan area meet this criteria. Yeah, I don't know of anything in Ann Arbor that would. Similar to a movie director who requires a minimum threshold of studio budget and community buzz to take on a film with his or her creative vision, I'm personally only interested in taking on the creative challenge of hosting events above a certain level of grandeur. You could say it's ego. You could say it's self-centered. I don't really care. It's his choice, and I think that's a perfectly reasonable stance to take. And honestly, I'm happy that he's doing this instead of trying to half-ass something, because I don't think anyone would be happy with a half-assed event. And I can't see myself making sacrifices to what we've come to expect creatively and aesthetically at a Big House by downscaling the overall scope of it. I still love the game and community. I'm incredibly grateful for the support from our thousands of attendees and our amazing staff and volunteers over the years. And I wish I could host Big House this year. I just hope everyone can understand life happens, assumptions shift, landscapes evolve. I do this at the pleasure of the community, and if the desire and the hunger is truly there for future installments of the Big House, then please make them known politely and constructively. In the meantime, thank your longtime TOs and practice gratitude for everyone behind the scenes who dedicates time and effort to making experiences great at any event you attend. Best, Robin Harn, aka Jungle Guy. So, yeah, I mean, none of this is really out of the blue. Most of the people that have been involved in Melee in any capacity significantly knew this was coming for maybe a month or so, but it's definitely good to see a lot of his insight because I wasn't. So, for example, the thing that I heard is that he just wanted to focus on coaching girls volleyball. And after reading this, that is decisively not the reason that this has been canceled. So whoever told that and spread that was just full of nonsense, right? So I'm very happy to be able to read this and get more of an insight to what he's thinking. It's not just Big House. Every single Melee event, especially the big ones, are all passion projects. Ballback and Sheridan are not rich off Genesis. Not even close, right? It's just not even close. This is something that is genuinely a pretty thankless job. Deer's not rich up. But yeah, this is kind of the issue with being grassroots is a lot of times it's hard to get these sponsorships. And I don't know what the current relationship with Nintendo is with regards to these sponsorships. I haven't heard of anyone getting rejected yet, so maybe there's hope down the line that sponsorships might be easier to secure since there's a direct line of communication with them. Obviously, I'm not going to get my hopes up because, God, if we haven't done that enough and gotten bit in the ass for it. I don't think that there's been any issues with Melee sponsorships whatsoever, that at least that I'm aware of. Xbox Summons Unfrozen, yeah, you have to use Unfrozen Stadium. As far as I'm aware, the trade-off is no known mods. If you're going to use something, God, don't put it on the fucking screen. Don't even mention it. That's to my knowledge. And honestly, if that'll get us sponsors back, I know I'm a Foxmain. I'll take it. What about UCF? What's UCF? Yeah, it's a tough situation to be put in, but I still don't think even with this is the end of the world. Again, I said this at the beginning, and my view on this at least hasn't changed. It is very understandable that someone's, dedication to the game doesn't waver, but it becomes into conflict with other aspects of their life as you grow older. Jungle Guy's not, I assume he's not in his 20s anymore, right? He's trying to build a life. And if he's building a life, it's really hard for him probably to warrant the amount of effort that a super major like Big House takes, especially if your job isn't at, a Melee or at least a Melee adjacent type of discipline. So this type of stuff is bound to happen at some point. And I kind of want people to understand that it's not the end of the world. You just need new people to step up. Which is why I'm happy it's like Ohan is super young. He's 24. He's running a bunch of events. I did not know. Ohan's only 24, 23, but apparently he's still early 20s, which is insane to me. So you have like younger TOs starting to step up running events, and we do kind of need that. My only request is that we find ways to make it so that, maybe they have a reason to stay doing events as that a passion. And part of that involves not bitching when venues of a super major go up to $90, $100. Does it suck? Yeah, it sucks. No one wants to have to pay more money, but guess what? Everything is more money right now. And if you want the events to happen, you got to find a way to support it. A lot of people, they want 24-hour venue. They want the quad stream. They want the opera venue across the street from Genesis, and then it raises it by $10 and they freak out. And it's like, are you kidding me, dude? Get a grip. Seriously, get a grip. You have no idea how much value you're getting. People will say, oh, but I have to pay for flight and hotel. Yeah, you do, but guess what? You could pay for flight and hotel for any vacation. That doesn't go away from it. That never goes away anywhere you travel. This is a vacation. You're paying $100 for an amazing experience the entire weekend. Now, if the tournament puts on a shit show, right? They don't do a good job, they don't give you value at all, then yeah, you should complain. Be like, yo, this wasn't worth it, and don't go back. I'm gonna say this, and someone's gonna be upset about this, someone's gonna take it the wrong way, but this is genuinely life advice to you if you fall in this category. If you're in a spot where $10 makes or break a Melee event for you, you probably shouldn't be going to it in the first place. Not because we don't want you, not because you don't deserve to go to a Melee event, but because that's just irresponsibly spending money at that point. If $10 is really that big of a deal, you probably should stay home and save for another event. Nobody wants to miss out, but that is true. Like, I have not gone to majors when it's my actual job because I couldn't afford it, right? And you think I want to miss events? You think I didn't want to go to the European events? You think I don't want to go to the, to Phantom this year in Australia? Of course I want to go. I can't afford it. So even though it's my job, I have to stay home. So people need to realize that this shit's hard. And these people are making zero money from this, effectively. And God forbid something happens where you don't meet your financial quota or something, and you're just in the red, and you're responsible for that. And yeah, you could say, oh, well, they'll fundraise, they'll make the money back. Nobody wants to fundraise. Nobody wants to be put in that position. So that's pretty much what it is for now. I will say I can't hard commit it yet. I do tentatively plan on, in lieu of Big House, having kind of people over my house in October for a week to have to just have a Smash Fest, have a bunch of smaller tournaments, not super serious, but kind of like a boot camp. I might try that. I can't promise that, but I'm like, you know what my intentions are in the event of this. It's not going to even be like a summit. It's going to be like a fest. It's going to be like a week-long boot camp. Can I say one thing that's really funny? How the fuck do I win Shine and then it goes away, and then I win Big House and it goes away? I'm cursed. What the hell, man? What the hell?